Beauteous. Beauteous. Hey y'all. I'm out here, it's probably a little after 5, I think. Maybe more. Might be 5:15. So I wanted to make this video about grief. Just last week, it'll be a week ago tomorrow, my mom died after battling this thing called ALS for probably more than a year, but she was diagnosed really late. For those of you who don't know, ALS is a degenerative disease. It's 100% fatal, and it's a real motherfucker of a disease because, I mean, depending on what kinds you have, she had the kind that was called bulbar onset or bulbit onset, and she basically lost the ability to use her throat muscles and her mouth, and lost coordination with her hands. So she lost the ability to speak, sing, which, for those who know my mom, know she was a incredible singer, beautiful singer. And she lost her ability to speak and to eat. She had to get a feeding tube put in, and we all learned how to help her feed herself. She could still walk around, but she had to communicate through a voice text thing, app on her phone, where she would write stuff out and it would speak for her. And also she could write stuff down for the most part. So obviously there's an incredibly tragic nature to all of this. It's horrible to watch anyone that you love deteriorate and suffer, and that's what she was doing especially in the last month or so of her life. She was struggling to breathe because her lung capacity was down below 20%, and her throat, she was constantly choking because her throat wasn't able to keep saliva from going down into her windpipe because the muscles were all paralyzed. Meanwhile, the whole time her mind is completely solid and sharp, and that's how it is with people who have ALS. It's terrible. It's a horrible, horrible disease. That didn't dim her spirit. You know, she wrote books for all of her kids as soon as she found out she had it and was terminal. She's a poetic individual, very deep, profound soul, and still is. One of the things she talked about in her book to me was this thing called continued bonds, and it's basically where you continue to have a bond with the person who's passed. You treat them as if they were just maybe even in the next room, and I believe that is true. So I've continued to engage with my mom and speak to her like she's right here. I joke with her, I cry with her. I miss her human form, but I also know that she's not suffering and her spirit is still here. It's hard to have this perspective because grief is real and sadness is real, and that sadness and that grief needs to be experienced. It needs to be felt, because if we choose to push it away, just like a fart, when you're laying in a bathtub full of water, you can't pull that fart bubble down. It's going to find a way to the surface, and in unconscious or subconscious ways, it's going to be worse than if you just were to feel the grief and the sadness from the beginning. So that would be the most important thing, in my opinion, as far as dealing with grief, is to feel it. And it comes in waves too. It's tenacious waves of grief. They keep coming, and then they smooth out, and then they come again. I've been using the analogy of surfing, because if you learn how to surf, you learn how to surf with the ups and downs of each day, because some days are good and some days are bad, but the point is you take it one day at a time, and that's important. That's an important part of the process, in my opinion. Come on, girl. or one other thing I want to talk about is what some of the things that happened actually during the moment of death for my mom. All my siblings, we had anticipated this, but we had anticipated kind of this finality within the last couple weeks. So we were spending a lot of time with my mom. I was mowing her lawn, you know, I was doing chores for her, doing dishes, and playing music for her. So before my mom passed, she had told me, when I pass, I will come back in some form and tell you that it's all okay. And, you know, at the time, you don't want to think about it. But then she was surrounded by her kids and my siblings and her husband, my stepdad. And we all held on to her, and we spoke to her, and we told her we loved her. And when she passed, a rainbow appeared outside our house, like picturesque, looking out the back door. There it was, because there's a pond out back, and beyond the pond, the rainbow came right down. And it was a beautiful moment of clarity. And started to fade after a few minutes. So I turned around and went inside for a second. I came back out a few minutes later, and it came back twice as strong. It was complete all the way around, and there was another little double rainbow starting. It was just the most profound thing ever. A few hours or an hour or so, maybe not even, it was like 20 minutes before my mom passed, she gave all of us our books. And in my book, in a very contextually random part, my mom says, I want you to sing a special song for me, and it's Eva Cassidy's version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. That was the only song that she had mentioned throughout in this book that she had written. And I thought that was so profound, because in the song it talks about, you know, somewhere over the rainbow, high above the chimney tops, where troubles, can't remember the lyrics exactly, but where troubles melt like lemon drops, that's where you'll find me, you know. There's just such a depth there, and the synchronicities, and this just entire psychedelic nature of this passing through a dimension, and bidding them farewell on their journey, while also realizing that they are never far in an esoteric sense. It was just very profound. Another thing that happened is my oldest sister had brought her child, Quentin. Throughout the week prior to my mom's death, Quentin had learned, he's just a little baby, 9 months old, I think. He had learned how to wave. This was something that he had learned how to do in the last week, or maybe week and a half before my mom passed. And during this process, it was probably about a half an hour process or more. Quentin looked into the corner of the room beyond where my mom was, and he looked at the corner and he waved. And then he and we all noticed it, or I noticed it, my sister noticed it. And then he looked back at us, and he's like, what are you guys doing? It was almost like, you know, Quentin, having just come from this realm, the Bardo, the place of the unborn and the undying, that space where spirits go, home, source, whatever you want to call it. Having just come from that space, he was seeing. He was more prone to be able to see this spirit leave and go back to that place that he had just come from. And it was a very it wasn't a super emotionally heavy thing. It was see you later, you're going back, we'll see ya, you know. And that, to me, that was mind-blowing. A few hours after my mom passed, the cremation and funeral service came to pick her body up, and we picked up I helped them, I picked up her body, and I put it in the stretcher. But okay, so just prior to doing that, before we moved her, our dog went up and nudged her, nudged her with his, and this is a big Newfoundland, nudged her a bunch of times, nudged her body. And my sister saw that as he was trying to wake her up. I instinctually saw that as a goodbye, as an acknowledgement that she's going away, or her body's going away. What it actually was, I really don't know. It's hard to tell, but that was just my instinctual response. But anyway, I don't know, I kind of just wanted to talk about it. There's so many things, and the night before she passed, the whole hue of the outside area was pink. It wasn't just the sky was pink, it was the whole like everywhere you looked had this beautiful pink hue, and it was just mind-blowing to all of us. Man, the whole last year can be summed up in some sort of tragic and beautiful psychedelic trip. But specifically the last like week of my mom's life was something that was just out of this world. There's this confidence that my mom had. Her soul had a deep understanding of what she was doing. She was transitioning from that stage of suffering to the stage of dying. And those are two completely different things. And I think the soul has a deep, deep understanding, unconscious, beyond our ability to analyze, has an understanding of what to do as a soul in that process. You know, obviously I'm not an expert or anything. This is speculation and from experience, being with my mom, being there, it's a profound thing. And it's sad, but it also can liberate a deeper understanding of reality within the human experience. As far as people going through grief, you know, it's important to take it one day at a time and to feel it when it happens and to acknowledge it, you know, just like an epiphany that you might have when you're having a psychedelic trip, or any epiphany. You acknowledge it and you let it go. You can't chase it, because if you chase anything, you know, it can drive you crazy. So I'm trying to take my own advice. I'm trying to put one foot in front of the other. I still speak with my mom. I know she's still with me, and I'm going to write her letters. I'm going to tell her about things that happen in my life. I'm going to have that continued bond, and I'm going to just try and live up to my potential as a human, for her and for myself and for all of us, for my family, for friends, for just the spirit of love and goodness, music. But yeah, people going through grief, take it one day at a time, and to just remember that it's all okay, and it's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. I love you guys. I hope this was entertaining or something, whatever. I hope you guys have a great day. And I've got a lot to catch up on.